The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital cast everything in a sickly pallor, but nothing looked as pale as my mother's face when Dr. Holstrom spoke those 6 devastating words: "You are not biologically related. I'm Sydney." And until that moment 3 weeks ago, I thought I understood the depths of family dysfunction. I thought I knew what it meant to be the forgotten daughter, the one who lived in her sister's shadow, but I had no idea that my entire existence had been nothing more than a carefully orchestrated lie, a human insurance policy wrapped in the illusion of love. It started with screaming. It always did in my family. "You're letting your sister die." My mother's voice ricocheted off the sterile hospital walls like a gunshot, drawing stares from nurses, patients, and visitors who suddenly found themselves unwilling witnesses to our family's implosion. Coraline Hale stood over me in the middle of the lobby, her designer handbag clutched like a weapon, my medical records scattered at her feet like confetti from a celebration I was never invited to. Behind the glass wall of room 311, my sister Vera lay propped against pristine white pillows, watching the scene unfold with that familiar smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. Chemotherapy had stolen her hair and weight, but not her arrogance. Even now, dying, or claiming to be, she managed to look like she was enjoying the show. "Do you think you get to sit there and act like some sort of victim?" Mom's voice cut through the lobby's hushed atmosphere like broken glass. "Your sister is dying, Sydney, dying, and you're doing nothing, absolutely nothing." The words weren't new, they'd been sharpened over decades, honed into weapons that fit perfectly in her mouth. But today, something was different. Today, I had information that would change everything. I bent down slowly, deliberately, to collect the scattered pieces of my medical file. Not out of guilt, I was done with guilt, but because they contained proof, facts, something solid that couldn't be twisted like every bedtime story they'd fed me growing up. My father appeared beside my mother, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. Merrick Hale didn't need to raise his voice to command attention. His disappointment was a living thing, radiating outward in waves. "I didn't raise you to be this cold, this ungrateful," Mom hissed, lowering her voice as if volume equaled virtue. "We gave you everything." I looked up, meeting her eyes dead on. "You gave me what you thought I owed you for." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in my 26 years, Coraline Hale had nothing to say, but the moment didn't last. "You're just a selfish mistake." Dad's words hit like a physical blow, not because of their cruelty, but because of their casual delivery. No anger, no emotion, just cold, steady fact from a man who had raised me for over 2 decades. The indifference was somehow worse than hatred. Through the glass, Vera tilted her head, that tiny twitch of her lips curving upward. She didn't need to say a word. The script had been written years ago. Vera wins, Sydney yields, but not today. I walked away from that lobby with a secret burning in my pocket, an email I'd kept buried for months. The results of a genetic compatibility test I'd taken 6 months earlier, back when I still believed that silence might equal peace. No biological compatibility detected. I wasn't a match, not partial, not marginal, not even close. They knew, or at least they could have known if they'd bothered to check. But why ask when assumption makes a better leash? That evening, in the quiet of my apartment, I forwarded the results to Dr. Holstrom with a simple subject line, reconfirming non-compatibility for records. I CC'd my attorney, Laura Liu, because if this circus was about to turn legal, I wanted my armor in place. But even then, I didn't know the full truth. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Holstrom, "Need to clarify an inconsistency in your file. Can you return today?" Something in the careful phrasing made my stomach clench. This wasn't routine. When I walked into his office that afternoon, the fluorescent lights felt harsher than before. He sat behind his white oak desk, hands folded, a manila folder open in front of him like a wound. "Miss Hale," he began, his voice professionally neutral but edged with something heavier, hesitation. "Before we continue, I need to confirm something. When was your last genetic screening?" "October," I replied, "for the donor test. You have the results." He nodded slowly, tapping his pen against his monitor screen. "That's the problem. Our system shows 2 sets of data, yours and Vera's, and they don't align." A cold wave slid down my spine. "What do you mean, don't align?" Instead of answering, he turned his monitor toward me, 2 charts side by side, color-coded markers where there should have been overlap. Except there wasn't. Not even close. "You are not biologically related." 6 words. 6 words that cracked 30 years of reality in half. I stared at the screen, then at him, waiting for clarification, for context, for anything that would make this make sense. Nothing came, just silence humming like a live wire between us. "I'm adopted?" My voice caught on the word. He exhaled slowly, as if bracing for my next question. That's what the data suggests. We ran it twice to be certain. My first thought wasn't relief. It wasn't even anger. It was something darker, a realization curling like smoke in my chest. They knew. They had always known. Every cold glance, every offhand comment about we didn't have to take you in, every time love felt like a receipt instead of a gift, it all crystallized into one brutal truth. I wasn't their daughter. I was their insurance policy. I'll need documentation, I said finally, my voice sounding alien even to me. All of it, printed and notarized. You'll have it, Dr. Holstrom replied quietly. And Sydney, you have every right to speak to our legal department. What happened here? What was withheld? Crosses serious ethical lines. I stood on legs that felt foreign, the manila folder clutched like a lifeline. My phone buzzed, Mom's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring. Outside his office, the hospital felt different, louder. The sounds of normal life, nurses moving like tides, voices overlapping, distant laughter, all seemed wrong, hollow, like the world didn't know it had just shifted on its axis. I found myself at a window overlooking the parking lot, watching cars glint in the afternoon sun, people living lives that hadn't just detonated. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass and whispered the only words that made sense. It was never about saving her. It was always about control. That's when I made my decision. I walked back to the hospital's media room where, just hours earlier, my mother had held a press conference painting me as the selfish daughter who wouldn't save her dying sister. The banner still hung, the lights still burned, and some cameras were still being packed away. I approached the podium with steady steps, my hospital badge still clipped to my blouse. I'm here to speak, I said to the remaining reporters. It won't take long. No one stopped me. They didn't know what was coming. I placed the manila folder on the podium and opened it slowly, methodically. My name is Sydney Hale. You didn't hear that name today, but it matters. Heads turned, phones lifted. This, I held up the first page, stamped and signed, is the official test result from the National Donor Registry, dated October. It states that I am not a match for Vera Hale. This, I raised another document, is evidence that my mother received these results 6 months ago and chose to hide them from every doctor in this building. A ripple cut through the small crowd like an aftershock. Camera flashes exploded. I was adopted, I said plainly. They never told me. They brought me here under the assumption that I could save someone who spent her life tearing me down. And when that failed, they tried to use my body to cover their lie. Behind me, I heard gasps, whispers, then the sharp crack of my mother's composure finally snapping. Lies. Coraline stumbled forward, her voice cutting through the static. She's unstable. This is revenge. I turned, calm as stone. No, this is documentation. I lifted the stamped page, its official seal catching the camera lights. Unlike the forged consent form you submitted, this one holds up in court. A reporter's voice cut through the chaos. Do you want revenge or justice? I didn't hesitate. Neither. I want no more silence. I stepped down from the podium, folder in hand. Behind me, Coraline collapsed, the sound of her body hitting the floor echoing through the suddenly quiet room. Merrick lunged toward her, shouting something lost in the rising wave of voices. On the monitor displaying Vera's room, the feed went black. The cameras followed me as I walked out, my heels clicking like gunfire on the tile floor. No one tried to stop me because they couldn't, not anymore. By the time I reached the sunlit pavement outside, my hands weren't shaking, not when I called Laura, not when I said, send everything, every file, every photo, every timestamp, press first, then legal. She exhaled sharply on the other end. You just blew the roof off. Sydney, good, I said, let them choke on daylight. It's been 3 weeks since that press conference. 3 weeks since my name stopped being a whisper and became a headline. Adopted daughter exposes consent forgery in organ donation scandal. The investigation is ongoing. Coraline remains under medical observation. Merrick has gone silent, his reputation in ruins. Dara was discharged 2 days ago. No Instagram sermons, no curated Bible verses, just digital quiet. And me? I sit on my balcony each morning now, coffee black, the city alive beneath me, breathing air that feels like it's finally mine. Yesterday, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside, a note in careful teenage handwriting. Hi Sydney, I saw your story. I'm adopted too. I didn't know I could say no either. Thank you for showing me I can. I'm 17. You gave me something I didn't know I was allowed to have. Choice. No signature, but it didn't need one. It was proof, not of pain, but of purpose. So if you're reading this and you've ever felt erased by the people who should have protected you, Hear me, your worth is not up for negotiation, your voice is not too loud, and you are not alone. The truth doesn't rot, it waits, and when it finally sees daylight, it burns away everything false, leaving only what was real all along. Sometimes, that's exactly what the world needs. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe Revenge Radar and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you in next video.